Hello, and welcome to Conquering Finale. My name is Jason Lafredo, and this is a subscriber request. Today's request comes from Peter Demetz. Peter wants to know the best way to parenthesize notes for handbell choirs in Finale. Now, my understanding is that a handbell choir score can be created with notes that could be omitted depending on the size of the choir, and the standard notation for this is to put parentheses or brackets around certain pitches to be omitted by the smaller choirs. Now, there are, of course, other applications for parenthesizing notes, so hopefully this will be relevant to more than just handbell arrangers. Now, putting parentheses or brackets around notes in Finale is not exactly friendly because both the Articulation Tool and the Expression Tool are not exactly 100% suited to this task, and you'll see why as I start to get into it. But thanks for the challenging question, Peter, and I'll see if I can make this process just a little bit more user-friendly for you. Before I get into that, I just want to show you how you can submit a request for a video. First of all, you must be a subscriber, so click the subscribe button on YouTube and/or sign up for the mailing list by clicking this link on the website. Then, just send me an email here with your request. Lastly, if your request does make it to video, please consider a donation to the cause with whatever you can. It would be most appreciated. More details can be found following the link in the description below or directly on the subscriber request page of the website. Now, let's see what we can do about these parentheses. So, as I mentioned at the outset, this is not exactly easy. There is no native functionality in Finale that will make elements avoid accidentals or augmentation dots or any other horizontal considerations. So this is a little bit tricky, and the other part of it that makes this challenging is that with both the Articulation Tool and the Expression Tool, elements don't get attached to specific note heads. In the case of the articulation, it sort of gets attached to the entire note stack, which is why when you put in an accent on it, goes over the top of everything. You don't get an accent on every single note head. And with expressions, we can attach to the top or bottom note, but it's impossible to attach anything to a middle note in an expression. So, and unfortunately, even we don't have the option of going into the speedy entry, and there's no magic key to press that will parenthesize these notes. So, we are left kind of with figuring out what the least of all evils are when we're dealing with these parentheses around notes. Let's start with articulations because, again, this can be done with either tool, and there's disadvantages and advantages to both. So let me just sort of spell it out. With the Articulation Tool, we actually do have the parentheses already in the default document, and if you're aware of what the meta tools are, it's the 9 and the 0. If you're looking at your computer keyboard, that's where the left and right parentheses are anyway. And if you hold down 9 and click a note, you'll get the left side of the parentheses, and hold down 0 and press the note, you'll get the right side of the parentheses. So it actually is pretty simple to add parentheses around notes. In fact, I can do it all on these two bars all at once just by holding 9, drag selecting, holding 0, drag selecting, and you can see that fairly quickly I can put parentheses around every single note in that passage. Now, as I mentioned, the disadvantage of using our articulations is that this really will only work when there's a single note, because if I try to do it on this octave here, it's going to choose the note that's away from the stem, or the note head side in this case, because articulations can really only have sort of one position. Now, what I could do is I could duplicate these articulations here and change the position to sort of go off of where this note head is. So, but then again, I'd have to have like 7 or 8 different versions of both of those, so that it's a second away, it's a third away, it's a fourth away, it's a fifth away. It'll get very cumbersome very, very quickly trying to figure out exactly where, just having all of those articulations to keep track of. The other thing that we can do is that once we have the articulations here, and I should have mentioned, if I do it over here, by the way, you'll see what happens is that, it'll put it on the top. What Finale is doing is it's putting it on the note head side, which is different depending on if the stem is going up or down. So you can see the issue here. You can use the articulation, the change articulation utility here for something like this, and you can add to the default position. And with these up stems, I believe to switch to the top octave, believe it or not, you have to enter a vertical value of -0.37 here. And that should move all of those articulations up to the top octave. So that's an option as well if you really want to get into sort of memorizing exactly what those values are to move those articulations up and down. I believe it's really strange because if the stems are flipped, let me just do this real quick. You'll see that the articulations get flipped, but the value to change articulations, the vertical value to get it to the bottom octave is not negative 0.37, it's negative 0.3. And that should work. It's really strange that negative values go downwards in one scenario and upwards in another scenario. It's sort of technical about how the flipped articulations work and all this stuff. I've got a lot about that in the articulation tool. But anyway, it's not exactly user friendly to do it like that. And furthermore, as I mentioned, the articulations will not get out of the way of things like accidentals. So you see I just put that left parentheses and you're kind of dragging it around. So this will be a big pain, particularly if you want to if you want to parenthesize the F sharp here, here's the two articulations, and then let's just take this left one here and get it out of the way, and then try and select both of them and drag them down. I mean, this gets really tedious to do with the articulation tool. So it is possible, but there's a lot of manual adjustments going on. So I'm going to start over, and I'm going to show you maybe slightly a better way using the expression tool. The other major advantage is that we can create expressions that have more than one character. That was the other problem with the articulation tool, is that you can only put in one side of the parentheses at once. There's no way to actually combine both parentheses into one articulation. But with expressions, we can add them both at once. And I'm just going to sort of set this up and show you how this is done. And what I'm going to do here is I'm going to create an entirely new category based on the technique text. So we'll duplicate that, and we're going to call it Note Parentheses. And I'm going to set the font. You kind of want something that's going to be a little bit narrow, so I'm going to use Arial 12 here, and that should work for this. And the positioning is going to be important. And what I'm going to do here is I'm going to right justify, and I'll show you why in a little bit as we get going here. And the horizontal alignment, we're going to do right of all note heads, okay? So basically what's going to happen is that right parentheses is going to sort of pin to the right edge of the note. And then what I want to do here is also add a little bit of a offset to the right. So I'll do positive 0.07, and that will make that just give you a little gap between the parentheses and the end of the note head. And for the vertical alignment, you can have top or bottom note. For the category, you can only choose one. So let's just choose top note. And the offset value that will work here is negative 0.05. Now, of course, these values are specific to Arial 12 point font. So if you're using something else, you may have to adjust these values ever so slightly. So now I have my category set up. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to create a new expression here. I'm going to call this top note. Just so I can keep track of these, because I'm going to actually make several of these. And basically what this is just the left parentheses, 3 spaces, and the right parentheses. All right, and that's all it is. And you click OK, and now you've got your new expression, and you assign it. And I did it totally wrong. Because I did a negative offset here, it should be positive 0.07. Let's try that. There we go. Magic. And yeah, so that's all there is to it, and we can add it again. And of course, it's probably best to create a meta tool for this. So just do Shift A, and I'll assign the A key to this. And now all I have to do is hold down A, and you can see that I can put these in as much as I need to. Now, again, I attach this to the top note, so you can see that if I try it on this one, it's always going to get attached to the top note. Now this is different than the articulation tool, because the articulation tool is always going note head side or away from the stem. But with the expressions, it's definitely the top note all of the time. So what we can do is duplicate that expression. And this time I'm going to call it bottom note. Right? It's going to be the same expression. The only difference is I'm going to change the positioning, and I'm going to uncheck use note parentheses category positioning, and leave all of this the same here, but we're just going to change top note to bottom note, and the additional entry offset is fine as well, and click OK. And now we have a second version that will apply to the bottom note. And of course, let's apply a meta tool to this. So how about B, Shift B, assign. So now all I have to do is hold down B, and I get the parentheses on the bottom note. All right. And of course, we can have parentheses on both just by using both meta tools there. So there's parentheses around everything. All right. So far, so good. Now, of course, this still will not work when you have accidentals. As you can see, if I put one here, the accidental's in the way of the parentheses. So we do have to create a second set of these to accommodate for the parentheses. So what I'm going to do is, now that I have both of these here, I'm going to duplicate both. And I'm just going to take this one and move it down so that we're keeping our organization here. And we're going to edit this. And to make room for the accidental, what we need to do is add 2 spaces in the middle. All right. And I'm going to call this top note with accidental. And the positioning is going to stay exactly the same. And now this is why the importance of the right justification right of all note heads, because basically what I'm doing is I'm adding spaces here, right? But because it's right justified, the right parentheses will never move, right? It's going to be pinned to the right side with that little bit of positive offset, sending it a little bit further to the right to add a little space. But with the extra spaces, what it's going to do is send the left parentheses off to the left farther. So now, when I assign that, you'll see that the right parentheses is in the same place as this version, but the left parentheses is a little bit wider to the left, right? And of course, we can apply meta tool. So let's do I for this one. And now just I will put it in, and I didn't do the second one here, so let's edit this one as well. So again, edit it, add 2 spaces, bottom note, with parentheses, or with accidental. Positioning is all the same. Okay. All right, and we can set J to this one. Shift J to apply that. And again, if there's only one note, it doesn't matter if you use the top note version or the bottom note version, because the single note is both the top note and the bottom note. And of course, when you have the chords here, you just have to be careful about which one you're using. If I want to parenthesize the top note, this is, you'll have to start making some decisions about this, because you'll see, even though the A doesn't have the accidental, you still need the space for the accidental, because the accidental comes way up there. So you'd still have to use the I version of this to parenthesize the A there, or the J to parenthesize the D. Now, again, you can see the issue here is that for me to parenthesize the F sharp here, there's no middle, note choice for the positioning. So you can't avoid totally the object of dragging things around. But, now that you have sort of most of it set up, you're only just dragging this one down a little bit. So, again, it's not 100% perfect, but it is a little bit better. Again, if I needed to parenthesize the middle note, I just have to choose one of them and just drag it to the appropriate spot. All right. Now, there are other scenarios like this dotted note here, so we're going to have to do something different, because now what we need is extra space on the right, not extra space on the left like the accidental. So why don't we set up a whole second set of these? Actually, let's duplicate the original, or a whole third set rather. Move these down just so I can keep it organized. Oops. That's the top note version. We'll call this top note with dot. Now, to accommodate for the dot, the only thing I need to add is 1 space in between the parentheses here, not 2. But the positioning has to be slightly different. And the part of the positioning that has to be slightly different is the horizontal offset, right? So 0.07 is giving me a little bit of white space between the right edge of the note and the parentheses. But I need more of that offset in order to get out of the way of the dot. So instead of 0.07 here, I'm going to make this 0.12. And click OK. And hit assign, and you'll see that your parentheses will now avoid the dot. And actually, let's do this. We'll do X and Y, so Shift X for this one. And I never did the bottom one, so let's fix this one up. So again, edit this bottom note, put an extra space with dot. And again, the positioning change is going to be 0.12. And X, and let's call that Y. All right, so you can see that what I've been doing here is I'm basically creating sort of a set of parentheses that will accommodate for certain situations. Now, of course, if I had a dotted note with an accidental, then I would have to add a whole other set of these that would basically duplicate these guys because the right justification and the offset is getting me out of the way of the dot, but then I'd have to add 2 more spaces to send the left parentheses further to the left to get out of the way of the accidental. All right. So you can see how this is not exactly ideal, but once you get the idea and you kind of remember what your meta tools are, you can kind of do okay with parenthesizing all of these notes, right? And again, with the chords, you just kind of have to choose, where is this going to go? The whole notes are a little bit wider, so sometimes you do have to move those just a little bit left and right as well. Incidentally, if you have a second like this, use the one that accommodates for the accidental, because it is just about the same amount of space for that. So, all right, so different. So you have different options for this, and of course for Peter, when he's doing these handbell things, he has the square brackets as well. So for him, what he would have to do is also create a whole other set of these. Now, again, I've created 6 of these. Maybe I needed 8 or 10, depending on accidentals, augmentation dots. Sometimes even if you have 2 accidentals here, you need even more space. If I were to parenthesize this F natural here, so you could end up with a set of 8 or 10 or 12 of these with different values and different spaces in between the parentheses. And but then for him, what he would have to do is duplicate all of these and basically edit each one so that instead of using the round parentheses, you use the square parentheses, which are these guys here, those guys there, to get the square parentheses. So that's let me just do that for you instead of just being lazy about it. So I've just did that. Here's the left square bracket. Here's the right square bracket. Although I haven't applied there we go. Haven't applied a meta tool to that yet, but you see how that will work simply by just replacing the round brackets with the square brackets. All right, so like I said, this is not exactly user friendly. It's not something that Finale handles natively, but this is the best way that I've found to do this. I know it's still not ideal, but I think it's a little bit better than using articulations for these parentheses. And if you have a good set of these parentheses in your expression tool set up sort of the way I showed you, it will be a little bit faster of a process. Not 100% perfect, but it'll be a little bit better. So so thanks, Peter, for the challenging question today. I hope this has helped a little bit. And for all of the rest of you out there, don't forget that you can also submit a request for a video, and I encourage you to do that. I love doing these, so send me an email, and I'll take a look at that. All right, so thanks a lot. My name is Jason, and this has been another subscriber request. If you enjoyed this video, please visit www.conqueringfinale.com to find full tutorials categorized by topic. You can also subscribe to my YouTube channel here, follow me on Twitter here, email me here, or you can send me Morse code, telegraphs, or smoke signals. But please, no carrier pigeons.